Well, good morning, everybody. And before we get started today, just a couple of logistical notes about this week's reports. This morning, I'm coming to you pretty early, so if you received my written email report, you'll notice there's not a downloadable PDF to look at today, and that's because I had to record this before most of that data were available. Secondly, I'm heading out to Portland today, and then I got to catch a red-eye back to Indy early tomorrow morning, which means I'll be on a plane when I normally write this report, so I'm just going to skip Wednesday, and we'll just pick back up with everything on Thursday. But I'm excited. I'm actually flying back early to go to the FFA National Convention over in Indy. So really looking forward to that. Now, while I've been talking, you've all been watching an animation of the radar here over the Southern Plains, really starting yesterday afternoon and going through early this morning. And this is kind of the two-part system we've been discussing. We have the lead front that's moved through parts of Arkansas and Missouri and up into Illinois. And then we have the second wave that's going to follow it and run right along that frontal boundary. And later on today, go straight through the same states, adding more rainfall. Now, last night as they came through, they did produce a pretty nasty line of storms that went through parts of Texas and producing some strong straight-line wind damage and some hail. And early this morning, these storms are going to be trying to cross the Mississippi River, and that's where we're going to be watching later today for the risk of storms. But as I pulled up this animation this morning, I saw one of my kind of favorite radar features. And it's very subtle to see here, but you're going to notice, in fact, I'll zoom in for you so you can see it. As the line was approaching, see these strange echoes? You probably missed it. Let me go to the zoomed in version. Watch this one, okay? There are these very interesting echoes, and you're going to see them in the Shreveport radar, which is here. Hang on just a second. Watch right in through here. See them? Watch. There they go. See those things streaking toward the radar? Sorry, I got to show you this. What's really interesting is there's often an artifact that can occur on radar images that's kind of the mirror opposite of the feature coming toward it. So you've got the main squall line heading toward the radar, which is located here. And these echoes that you see over here are actually an interesting reflection event that's happening. And they're coming in the opposite direction, moving at the same speed. I'm talking about these little streaks. See them? Coming toward the radar at the same speed as the system is moving. I find that fascinating to find these little nuances to how the radar systems work. By the way, all of this over here, these are all wind farms. But okay, let's get into this forecast. This is how much rainfall we got through 4 a.m. this morning when I was recording this. And this has really delivered quite a lot of rain through parts of the Red River Valley and up now into parts of eastern Kansas, getting into Missouri and parts of Iowa and Illinois. And we're going to be watching more of this spread today. A lot of this on the backside was snow from this system. And just taking a look at those 3-day snowfall totals, we did bring some snow out here into parts of western Dakotas and Montana and Wyoming, and of course in the mountains. But as we put in last night's long-range video, the downslope winds that followed this really brought warmer conditions through compressional warming and got rid of a lot of the snow that was on the ground. So let's get into the forecast, all right? Today, we're going to be watching that main frontal boundary as it crosses the river. The Storm Prediction Center's got parts of Mississippi, Alabama, and Tennessee under a slight risk for severe storms today. Again, primary threat will be straight-line wind damage. But speaking of winds, notice that on the back side of this, there is a large area that has a wind advisory today. And just to the west of there, this is all freeze warning. So for some pretty cold air that's coming in behind that. We have another morning of very thick fog that's over here across the eastern part of the country. But when we look at where this system is going to be by midday today, the low will be pulling through Missouri almost over St. Louis. You can see the very strong synoptic scale winds on the back side of this. So this system is going to be moving pretty quickly. Let's go take a look at it. Start here at 6 a.m. on Tuesday with the high-res NAM. So you'll see that second low essentially just following the main front. That's the main kind of boundary on which it's going to sit. And it just runs right through Missouri, such that by 4 o'clock today, the low will be probably right over St. Louis, and then spread some heavy rain through parts of Illinois, Indiana, getting into the eastern Great Lakes. The main frontal boundary, as you saw, moved from the Mississippi River, and by overnight tonight into early Wednesday, we'll be all the way over almost to Atlanta. So that system moves out, and it just continues to pull here through eastern Ontario and eventually into Quebec. And behind it, we've got our next system to watch. So this pattern is open and moving. And so let's go over to the European model and see where this is all going to go. So I've played through, there we go. That's Thursday morning. So take a look right here. This is the next system that's going to dig pretty far to the south. There's quite a bit of cold air for that to do that. So it's going to go right over the panhandles by Thursday night and Friday morning of Texas and Oklahoma, and then redevelop here in Texas. And then as it does so, it's going to pull right into parts of the lower Mississippi River Basin. So these are these repeated rain events we need to start to revive the soil moisture, but we need it over a much broader area to kind of bring the river levels back up. What's interesting is that in yesterday's video, I thought the presence of this high would prevent this low from getting back pretty far to the north, but the 0Z model runs try to do that for the weekend. That animation you just saw there went from, Saturday and to Sunday midday, and we're going to be spreading rain over parts of the central and eastern Corn Belt, stretching down toward the Appalachian Mountains. This pattern is open and it is moving. You see the next system already entering the Pacific Northwest, and we're going to continue to see that for a while here. That's because the Pacific is now unblocked. It's open and flowing. And as a consequence, the week 1 precipitation anomalies shown here versus the week 2 are wet for a lot of the United States. We just continue to see good jet stream level flow, providing us with ample chances for developing these storm systems as they roll across the country. So there are some consequences to this. We've tightened up harvest windows. We have kind of limited our field work with the frequency of these systems in the Midwest. There are some benefits, and we discussed this in today's report, and that is it's delivering a lot of decent early season moisture to the Pacific Northwest, parts of Northern California, but throughout the Intermountain West. And what I'm concerned about here is just the overall drought health of this area going forward into this new water year. Now, on the temperature side of this, take a look at today's highs. We're going to push on Tuesday into Wednesday, the warm air just lingering right here along the East Coast. With that next system that dives down, remember we saw this one coming down here late this week. We got some really cold air behind it. Highs on Friday down here in Texas and Oklahoma, New Mexico are going to be struggling to get out of the 50s. As we play it forward, though, into Saturday and Sunday, like we said, this is going to be a pretty volatile time period in terms of temperatures, just given the jet stream's position. So even by early next week, we've got a warm-up that's coming back to the plains. Overall, the models have been consistent with the pattern, keeping the cooler air to the west, where the troughs are located, and kind of repeated shots at cooler air through the midsection of the country, but a quick kind of revival of the warmer air that tends to follow these. So that's why you see the pattern, really showing up with colder west and warmer east. In today's report, if you get a chance to read it, I do talk about the drought issues in the west. We look at some of the reservoir data again, like we did in last night's in-depth report, and talk about La Nina, which right now is very strong, but we'll be paying attention to if and when it begins to fade and what that means for the jet stream flow into the west. That's a critical part of today's report. In addition to that, we also talk about the chances for rain that are coming down here into Buenos Aires, over toward Cordoba. These two areas are desperate for rainfall given the drought situation there. We're drier a bit further to the north for a while, so that includes southern Brazil here and northern Argentina. And overall, though, the new long-range models just really double down on the dryness in southern Brazil, Paraguay, Uruguay, and Argentina, which, again, we discussed in last night's in-depth report. So I just wanted to bring you the latest data here. Lastly, I just one more graphic, and that is just to illustrate how very wet things are in Australia. This has been a spring of a tremendous amount of flooding from South Australia, which is here, getting over to Queensland, New South Wales, and Victoria. This is a very productive area agriculturally for Australia. And La Ninas tend to produce a lot of excess precipitation, at least the risk of it. In this particular year, given how strong the La Nina is for our fall, their spring, we can certainly see the impacts here leading to 100 and in some places over 200 millimeters of excess rainfall this month. So these are anomalies. So that in imperial units is about 4 to almost 8 inches of additional rainfall. So the flooding issues here this spring are really creating some pretty hazardous conditions for farming. Okay, I'm going to go catch a plane to Portland. I'll talk to you all again on Thursday morning. Until then, have a good rest of your week. Thanks.